Good evening. I'm going to call to order the work session for the Capital Improvement Plan work session for Wednesday, January 14, 2026. At this time, I will take a vote for the a motion for the agenda. Vice Chair Jesse.
Chair, I move that the Prince William County School Board approve the meeting agenda as recommended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Tredenick seconds the motion. Any discussion? Please vote by raising your hand. That looks like 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 yes, 1 absent. Motion passes. Moving on to our proposed CIP, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Dr. McDade. Dr. McDade.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Greetings to the chair, vice chair, and members of the board, as well as community that may be watching via live stream. Today's work session is focused solely on the capital improvement plan and the conditions that must guide our decisions moving forward. For more than 3 decades, Prince William County has experienced growth such as new neighborhoods, new schools, and new facilities. Much of the planning in our county has reflected that reality, but today's presentation asks us to confront a different paradigm. You will hear from our team about projected enrollment trends that point to significant declines over the next decade. These projections have implications for how we use our facilities in the near term and for how we plan responsibly for the long-term success of Prince William County schools. Particularly, this planning must be accomplished considering increasing costs and declining utilization due to enrollment across the school division. The information that you'll see today is intended to lay the groundwork. Much of it is for future consideration, not necessarily immediate action. However, there is one area where your guidance will be essential. As part of the work, the board will be presented with 2 capital scenarios, one that continues forward with a previously planned high school, the 14th high school, and one that pivots in favor of reinvesting resources into other high priority needs across the school system. While no vote is anticipated today, we are seeking your direction as we prepare the proposed budget and align our capital priorities accordingly. I realize that this is extremely complex work. It reflects demographic shifts, fiscal responsibility, and our commitment to making strategic student-centered decisions. The decisions require us to rethink long-standing assumptions in favor of long-standing practices. This is definitely a different school system than it was when enrollment was continuing to grow year over year. And so now we have to make different types of decisions that are very complex. So with that context, I'm going to turn the presentation over to our team, beginning with our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Vernon Bock. Our Chief Information Officer is also a part of the team, Mr. Matt Guilfoyle, and our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Shaquille Yusuf. And so they'll have members of their team that will present data and walk you through several different scenarios, as well as implications for decisions that must be made on the capital improvement plan. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Bock.
All right, thank you, Dr. McDade. Good evening, Dr. Lateef, board members, and Dr. McDade. We're here to present to you, obviously, our proposed capital improvement plan for 2027-2031. The development of this plan has been truly a collaborative effort between the Chief Information Officer, the Chief Operating Officer, and the Chief Financial Officer and our teams. We generally begin the development of the CIP in the fall, and it truly has been a collaborative effort between these 3 departments, and I feel like it's a shining example of organizational coherence and convergence. We have several members of our team here who will be joining us for the presentation, but also a lot of members of the team that have put in a lot of work behind the scenes. So I want to thank members of those teams as well, or publicly. So just to outline to you the presentation tonight, we'll jump into discussing with you student and sharing with you student enrollment trends. We have Scott Halsey, our facility planning coordinator, here with us tonight, who will kick off the presentation with that information, as well as long-term planning and considerations. We'll talk about the 14th high school considerations. I'll update the board on estimates that we've received, new and current estimates. And then we'll get in, Dave Beavers will take over with discussing with you some of the approved and proposed capital improvement projects. We have Justin Moss with us here, our Director of Facilities, who's going to jump in and share with you some of the energy efficiency and sustainability measures in the CIP. And then Mr. Yusuf will round it out at the end on impacts on the budget. So just quickly, Dr. McDade did a really nice job of framing this. As enrollments continue to decline, they're yielding significant capacity gaps at our schools. And these changes are going to lead to multiple future decisions about facility usage. We'll talk again. I'll share with you the estimated and updated cost. They have risen dramatically for the 14th high school due to several factors, which we'll cover with you tonight. And then just to reiterate to what Dr. McDade said, the big decision point moving forward on this CIP is really scenario A, which includes the 14th high school, or scenario B, which includes discontinuing the 14th high school. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Scott Halsey.
Good evening, everybody. So we're going to start with the student enrollment and long-term planning considerations. First, we're going to get a lay of the land of what we're currently seeing with enrollment. We're still seeing out-migration from the Northern Virginia area. You see it along in like the Hampton Roads area. So the two biggest metros, we're seeing out-migration, as long with declining birth rates. Over the last 10 years, we've seen birth rates decline by 750 births. In 23-24, we saw 5,717 births in Prince William County. So without migration and the declining births, that is factors with population and how we're going to get students within our school system. With our population pyramid on the right-hand side, we see a large cohort at the very top in high school. There's currently 7,200 students in 12th grade, and our kindergarten cohort this past year was roughly 5,600 students, which is roughly 1,600 students different from our 12th grade cohort. So as these smaller cohorts matriculate through and knock out these larger cohorts, we're going to see declining enrollment. This past year, we saw our first grade cohort fall under 6,000 students, which is the first time since 2010. So we've gone 15 years of seeing a cohort of first grade over 6,000 students. So as these cohorts do continue to matriculate through, we're going to see smaller and smaller cohorts moving up to middle school and high school. Moving next to our new housing and constructions, looking at how many homes, new houses were built last year, we roughly had 1,500 new homes built. Projecting the next 3 years, we're seeing roughly around 1,200 homes, approximately in the low thousands area. Then you see a big uptick in 2029 through 2031. This is because that's when we start building into our projections the current rezoning submitted applications. And these applications are currently undergoing rezoning to move from, let's say, either A1 to R4 of how many homes they can build on these parcels of land. Something we did, we moved from a top-down approach to a bottom-up approach last year in our projection model for new residential housing. And that has allowed us to let current developments produce their own yield, so how many homes they're building via single-family detached, single-family attached, or multifamily attached homes. And that is something we do see, and it's been helping for those developments and for developments that do not have any current yield rates. We use the county average of all the homes that are being built at those levels to determine how many homes will be built. The difficult thing is the multifamily attached units, because sometimes they are rather larger. So we're only seeing an average of possibly 30 to 40 multifamily homes as an average across the county, but a lot of those units are over 300 units when they are being constructed. So that's something we're looking to possibly enhance within our projection window for new housing. Looking at our historical and projected enrollment, this is PK through 12. Over the next 5 years, we're looking to decline by roughly 3,000 students, 2,981 to be exact, through the next 5 years. And now looking at it within the elementary, middle, and high schools, over this past year, K through 12, we had 86,943 students. And in SY30, we're projecting almost a 3,000 student decline. You see at the elementary school level, we have a consistent decline through the first 4 years, and then a slight uptick in year 5. Currently, we only have birth data through the first 4 years from the Virginia Department of Health, and then in the 5th year, we use our county demographer over with Prince William County government, and we get the number of women age bearing 18 to 44 to help project how many births we could see in year 5. His numbers have been slightly higher than what we've been seeing from the Virginia Department of Health, which is why we see a slight rise in enrollment in that 5th year. High school looks like it's declining through the 7 years. For high school, we do project 7 years because those students are within our schools already, and these are the 2nd graders through 11th graders where we project. Then at the middle school level, you see the middle school is declining all the way down to 19,000 students approximately, and that is roughly 16,000 less, or 1,600 less than we currently have today. Here is our short-term and long-range projections. Here we use a linear extrapolation model to project outside the 5-year window for a long-range projection to see where we are going with Prince William County Public Schools. At the elementary school level, we are seeing a dip of almost an additional 3,000 students over the course of the 5 years from 2031 to 2035. And at the middle school level, we're seeing it be more consistent, actually a slight increase based off the historical numbers with the linear extrapolation. At the high school level, we are continuing to see a decline in enrollment through that next 3 years of the projection.
Can I ask a quick question? On your slide 8, you said, and I don't know if I'm reading this wrong, but 2025, which is this year, says 89,731. But then you have later on that we have 86,943 for this year. So which is it? So 2025 on page 8 says 89,731, and then on slide 10, SY25 enrolled students, which I guess is this year, it says 86,943. That's a difference of 2,500, 3,000?
Yes. So that's our pre-K students. So one is K through 12, and the historical enrollment is pre-K through 12.
Oh, I see. So,
Yes.
okay, so we have, okay. So this, okay, so that's important to, so the page 10 is only kindergarten through 12, and page 8 is pre-K.
Correct.
But, so, okay, so all other charts, though, are K through 12?
Correct, yes. All other charts are K through 12.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Moving forward, this past year, we moved high school from planning capacity to program capacity. Planning capacity is how a building is in design and how it is being intended to use based off the design of the school. Program is how the building is currently being used by the principal based off the programs in the school, the special education programs, if there's preschool programs, and that is program capacity. This past year, we switched from planning to program capacity at the high school level, and we saw a decrease in capacity at the high school level of 168. A lot of those schools are on the eastern side where we're seeing that decline, and even so with that decline, we are still seeing the necessary space on the east side of the county, even with the switch to plan our program capacity at the high school level. This is something we just wanted to point out, that we did move that switch from planning to program capacity. Looking at the underutilized educational spaces, and they are anticipated to increase over the next 10 years. In 2030, we almost have 12,000 vacant seats amongst elementary, middle, and high schools. In 2035, that does increase to almost 15,000 seats. This program capacity does indicate adding the additional capacities of the approved capital improvements from the FY26 to 30 CIP book. So we would have the addition at Marsteller, the Noakesville School, the Potomac Shores number 2. It does include the 14th high school. Any of those approved CIP measures that were in the book last year are being reflected in that program capacity metric. Then looking at the underutilized educational spaces by East, West, and Central, looking at the program capacity, it's relative based off where the schools are located. It does merge the elementary, middle, and high schools depending on the East, Central, and West. And looking at the space in 2030, we would have roughly 4,600 seats available in the East, about 1,000 seats available in the Central region, and about 6,000 seats available in the west. The good news that the central does have the least amount of available seats, but then it could have redistricting measures with the east and the west that could alleviate those pressures if necessary in those areas. Looking at the elementary school enrollment and considerations, we are looking at a decline in elementary school enrollment over the next 5 years, and it looks like it's going to continue to 2035 based off our birth rates, how migration is currently trending in our area. In 2030, we look to have roughly 5,200 seats available, which would be 7 elementary schools of space at the 750 design capacity school. Those vacant seats would give us a lot of future possibilities. We could look at consolidation, we could look at closures of schools, and look how we could optimize our resources to make better use of the surplus space in these facilities. If this were to happen and these trends were to continue, we could repurpose those closed and consolidated facilities for student and admin needs, such as universal pre-K, any programmatic needs, any specialty programs. Workforce housing is another thing that we've seen across the nation of how they're using some of these facilities that are closing. Our goal would be to maintain the high quality learning environments while using our space effectively across our division. Some of the trends we're seeing at the middle school level, we're seeing roughly 2.5 middle schools of space in 2030, which roughly 3,600 vacant seats. With capacity pressures easing, we could create opportunities for realignment and redistricting if needed, redistricting to balance the enrollment, and potential consolidation if this trend does continue in the out years. Lastly, our high schools. Over the next 7 years, we're looking at enrollment to decline by approximately 3,000 students. Of that, 1,600 is at the high school level. As these smaller cohorts do continue to matriculate through, we're going to see the high school enrollment continue to decrease if births are not starting to increase or we see more in-migration to Prince William County. Existing schools are projected to have a surplus of space even with the construction of the 14th high school. In 2028, we do see 1,200 seats across our division at the high school level, and then we add the 14th high school in, we jump to 2,400 seats of available space, and then looking to 2032's projection, we have 3,400 seats available across our division at the high school level. Some future possibilities is looking at our specialty programs and our transfer policies, and then possibly looking at countywide redistricting. And our goal is to sustain diverse opportunities for students while aligning facilities with our enrollment needs currently. So now, after the enrollment portion, we're going to jump into our approved and proposed CIP measures for 27 to 31.
Let me just pause here. Does anyone have any questions on this first part of the presentation? Okay, Ms. Wall.
Thank you. I had a question on page 11 in our booklet, which is high school planning to program capacity. The column that says planning capacity, is that also for 2025, 26, or is that for the 2024, 25 school year?
That was the 2024-25 school year. We have now transitioned to program capacity this school year.
Okay, thank you.
And those, for clarification, those numbers on page 11 are not how many kids are currently in the school. That's just what the capacity is.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's the difference of the two capacities.
But neither indicate the number of kids in the school right now.
Correct, yes.
I have a follow-up. Oh, sorry. Okay, so my follow-up is just to make sure I understood you. You said even though we moved to program capacity, which reduced the number
Of seats available.
of seats available, even with that, we're predicting all of these changes, all of this impact of attendance.
Correct. We're still
Enrollment, sorry.
Yeah, we're still indicating that there will be vacant seats with losing those 168 seats from that transition. So it's having no effect on the space we have available at the high school level, even though we did lose seats.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Williams?
I'm just curious, a few of the, same page, same 11, a few of the schools for the planning capacity is actually lower than the program capacity, which I just didn't expect. Could you provide some context maybe?
It depends
I mean,
on.
it doesn't I know you can't speak to each individual school, but
A lot of it depends on what programs are in the school. Are there more maybe special education programs where the loading factor in those rooms may be smaller? You do have different specialty programs at all the schools, which would have different loading factors. So you see generally 21 students for a general educational classroom at the high school level, but you start getting into different specialties with OSHA standards, you could be getting to like 15 students per class, and that's where you see some of those decline in or increases in the program capacity at certain schools.
okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I have one more question. Sorry, not to get hung up on the whole program capacity.
It's new.
Make sure I understand this. Program capacity, the number, so I'm looking at Colgan, 2457. This means that based on the programs at Colgan, they can accommodate 2,457 students.
Correct.
Is that, okay,
Correct, yes. Yes.
right.
Yeah, and
Okay.
just Colgan for an example, we actually did a deeper study into Colgan because it did have such a big increase.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, we looked at when portable classrooms started to come to Colgan, and it was roughly around that 25 to 2,600 capacity number. They were operating in those low 2000s without portable classrooms, so that's another indicating factor that they were able to utilize the space within the building, and that we were able to, based off all the data we received and the courses that are being taught, we were confident in that number for Colgan.
Okay, thank you. That's a good clarification.
So starting with our renovations, we still have Graham Park, Vaughn Elementary School, Fredlin Middle School, Woodbridge Middle School, Brentsville District High School, Dale City Elementary School, and we're looking to add Hampton Middle School into the queue for our renovation projects. Brief overview, at the elementary school level, Vaughn is currently in progress. The geothermal wells are being installed. The circular styled wings of the school are going to be demoed and rebuilt into rectangular classrooms as they're more conducive for our learning environment for our students. The scheduled opening is delayed to 2029, but that's because it is a phased addition, and with the demolition of the wings, it is a difficult renovation when students are within the building. Dale City Elementary is a renovation and addition. At this time, it's beginning the design phase, and we do not know the size of the addition yet. We're going to let the design and the location of that addition to determine how big that addition size is going to be. We're looking between 7 and 15 classrooms that will bring that school under 100% of capacity utilization. Next, we have our middle schools, Graham Park, Fredlin, and Woodbridge. All these are either underway or anticipated to start in FY27 and are on schedule as the FY26-30 CIP. Next is Brentsville, and that is currently in the design phase and looking to kick off in FY2027 and looking to be completed in the 2029 fiscal year. Lastly, our new school is Hampton, and that was next in queue using our facility condition index. So this renovation will include a full renovation of the existing building and added main office and office addition, because their office is in 2 current different locations within their building, so it's going to bring the office staff all to one central location at Hampton. Next, looking at our CIP capacity projects, we have no new projects being added to this year's CIP. We have the Occoquan Replacement School, the Woodbridge Area School, Potomac Shores No. 2, the 14th High School, Pennington Traditional School, Washington Reed Preschool Center, the Nokesville School, Marsteller Middle School, and Dale City Elementary. Briefly discussing our CIP capacity projects. Currently, the Occoquan Replacement School is anticipated to open in 2026. Immediate redistricting is not going to occur for the Occoquan Replacement School. It's going to house the current students that are in the building, and it's going to allow for other programs to come back to Occoquan. There's other students that are the special education students, early childhood special education, that go to different schools because the school did not have the space to accommodate those students. So these programs are now going to be in the new school, and we'll look in the future if redistricting is needed in surrounding schools. That's something we could look at that time. Next, we have the Woodbridge Area School, and that is anticipated to open in 2026. The redistricting is currently underway and is being voted on by the board on February 4th. Currently, Potomac View students are being proposed to move into the Woodbridge Area School. And cahoots to that, we're actually looking at Potomac Shores number 2, and we're doing that redistricting at the same time, and that's looking to relieve the overcrowding in the Cherry Hill area. You have Covington Harper, Patty Elementary, and other surrounding schools that are either right at or over capacity utilization, and the opening of Potomac Shores number 2 is going to alleviate that overcrowding in that area. Next, we have Pennington and Washington Reed. Pennington is an approved 10 classroom addition and is looking to be delayed 1 year. We are still having permitting issues with the city of Manassas, as that permitting process is different than Prince William County's permitting process, which is delaying the addition. The addition will not give the school additional capacity, but it will help house the current students at the school. So it's going to add general education classrooms, it's going to add a science lab, it's going to add special education classrooms for the current lottery students that are in the school. Looking at the Washington Reed Preschool Center, that is an approved 15 classroom addition and is still on track for the 27-28 school year. This addition is intended to help the growing VPI population, our preschool students, ECSE, and it's going to actually help if there is overcrowding in that central region and that east region. Some of those preschool programs can then move to Washington Reed, which then will allow some of those capacities to increase on the eastern and central side of the county. This is going to be a renovation as well, and it's going to be an HVAC replacement, ADA improvements, and additional parking to accommodate the staff with that 15 classroom addition. Next, we have 2 projects that are in design, and that's the Nokesville School addition, which is an approved 10 classroom addition scheduled to open in the 27-28 school year. And this proposed addition is adding to the K through 5 portion of the school, not the 6 through 8. But it is designed to be built for the middle school specs, so it could be used for multi-purpose. In addition, we have the Marsteller 10 classroom addition, and that is proposed to open in the 28-29 school year. And the goal is to add the additional classroom spaces and support spaces to help with the overcrowding at the Nokesville School and the new residential developments along that Vent Hill corridor that are forthcoming. Our consideration is redistricting, with looking in the 2027 school year to redistrict at the elementary and middle school level. Because of the Nokesville School being a K through 8, our goal would be to keep that boundary coincident, and we would have to move students at both the elementary and middle school levels at that time. We could utilize space in Bull Run and Gainesville Middle School and look at possibly reduce the overcrowding at Reagan at that time too. We could better utilize this elementary schools in the Linton Hall corridor to bring those upwards of 80 and 90% of capacity utilization, as we are seeing lower enrollment in that area. Next is our 14th high school overview and considerations. In our 2630 CIP, it was approved as a 1,400 capacity high school, and it was going to be scheduled to open in the 2930 school years. The school is intended to receive the overcrowding relief for the eastern high schools, and it was looking to include a robotics aquatic drone lab and a school-based clinic. Some considerations we need to look at are the net transfer rates that are contributing to the overcrowding at many of the schools. Osborne Park, for example, has 34% more students attending their school than are actually residing within their attendance area, and Potomac has 24 fewer students than are actually zoned to the attendance area. So we would want to look at our transfer policy and our specialty program policy to see how we could better accommodate some of what the overcrowding is occurring with our transfers and our specialty programs. When the school is slated to open, we are looking to have roughly 1,000 seats of space amongst the 13th high schools we do have. And then in 2031-32, we would have upwards of 2,000 vacant seats across our 13 high schools. Looking at the capacity of all of our schools, we are seeing a lot of capacity out on the western side of the county. And then looking at all of our schools in totality, in 28-29, we have 1,200 vacant seats amongst our 13 high schools. And looking in 2032, we would have upwards of 2,000 vacant seats in our 13 high schools. If we were to build the 14th high school, we would have 2,400 vacant seats in 29-30, and then upwards of 3,400 vacant seats in 2032-33. Just looking at the 7 schools that could be impacted by redistricting, we're only looking at 435 seats of overcrowding, But if we were to look at countywide redistricting, could we resolve all these issues without building the 14th high school? And that's where we get into our scenario A and B, and I want to pass it back over to Mr. Bock.
Thank you, Scott, and I'll be covering with you updated cost estimates on this slide. So I want to call your attention to the left hand part of the slide with the table from FY 2026. And you can see there we were estimating about just a hair under 208 million for the building site and soft costs. The site acquisition, that is a tangible asset that we do own. That was a $16 million acquisition. And you can see the total all-in estimate in the previous CIP was just a hair under 224 million. And actually, that was all pre-design. We were in the design phase with the DLR group. They, this past year, a full engagement effort to come up and kind of solidify the design. And now we have a design that we can respond to pretty confidently. That was a pretty rough estimate pre-design. Now we have a design, and you can see the estimate jumped up pretty significantly. And I want to call your attention to the table on the right. The first column, Downey and Scott, that's a leading construction management and estimation firm that is widely respected across the state of Virginia. We have a relationship with Downey and Scott. They certify all of our estimates in our CIP, and we've used them. And when we saw this estimate at almost 350 million, we were surprised. But you know, when we talked to Downey and Scott, it came down to now we have a design that we can respond to, how that design sits on the site. And I want to call attention to the board. It is an extremely challenging site because the grade drops about 100 feet across the site. So to situate a building on that site requires significant site work. And you can see it's almost 70 to $75 million of site work. Typically, a construction project for a high school, you might consider about 20 to 25 million for site work, and you can see that there's a substantial difference here. With that first estimate, we wanted to go out and get additional independent estimates because we were a little bit surprised by the price. So we asked the DLR group to reach out to a couple additional firms on our behalf and to manage that process for us. Independent of each other, they all came within about 3% of each other in costs, which is an indication that it's very accurate. So these are the updated costs, and you can see a pretty significant increase in the project. So with that now, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Beavers, to Justin, who's going to lead us through energy management, sustainability initiatives in the CIP. Justin?
Thank you, Mr. Bock, and good evening, members of the board. My portion of tonight's presentation is relatively brief. I'm sharing some of our updates for the upcoming CIP and FY27. Much of this information will be familiar to you as it was shared in your November meeting. However, what we did want to provide tonight was a list of the school-based projects by location. So our first slide is related to our LED upgrades. We are targeting 22 schools in FY27, and we're looking to really get out of the LED retrofit business in the next couple of years, but we do have a significant pocket. These are the biggest priority target for us in terms of our energy conservation and efficiency and operation, so we really do want to install as many of these new LED systems as we can. What you're looking at on the slide, the top black font represents the 22 schools for FY27. The lower portion in the blue font represents schools tied to the FY26 CIP, and then out to the right would be part of Scenario B, additional school projects that we would target in this upcoming year. The next slide is related to our outdoor learning environments. This is a big project for us. This is one of our major focuses in Elevate 2030. We are looking, and from a facilities perspective, one of our closest ties to the instructional learning. And so we really want to target these. We have many school projects underway. Notably is our Occoquan Elementary School, which is currently installing an outdoor learning environment, but we are looking at 28 schools in FY27 and looking to target and customize each of these learning environments to the unique learning requirements of those schools. So we're really excited about this work and something that we really look forward to bringing you updates in the coming years. Next slide, we're looking at 41 retro commissioning projects. This is what I kind of call the under the hood work in facilities. This is when we go in and look at our building automation and HVAC systems and do a tune-up, so to speak, at midlife to ensure that it's operating correctly and that it's meeting its manufacturer's design life expectancy. However, as it pertains to the upcoming strategic plan, this is also a primary target for us in facilities to look at AI and generative technology innovations to improve our efficiency in our operations and help our maintenance teams be more proactive and less reactive in our responses. The last slide I'm going to share with you tonight is our solar PV. We are looking at an additional 6 schools in FY27 to install solar. Just of note, any type of renewable energy projects, whether it's solar, whether it's geothermal, that's something that we will assess at every major project as part of the Virginia High Performance Buildings Act. So it's something that we will assess for feasibility in every project that we approach. We are looking at 6 schools in FY27 and anticipate expanding that to more in future CIPs. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Yusuf to close us out.
It's my turn. Hi, I'm Dave Beavers. I'm with the Budget Department, and I'm going to walk you through basically the highlights of the proposed CIP. This first slide looks at new projects we've added to the CIP and the highlights therein. If you'll start on the left-hand side, you'll see the additions. In the additions category, we have $22 million that we've added to the Marsteller Middle School addition and HVAC replacement project. This additional funding will allow for the inclusion of geothermal there, and that'll greatly improve the efficiency of that system. Under renovations, we see funding increases for both Woodbridge Middle School renovations and Brentsville District High School renovation. We also see the inclusion of the Hampton Middle School renovation, as Mr. Halsey pointed out. Facility modifications include kitchen upgrades at both Coles Elementary and Neabsco Elementary. These projects were developed in coordination with the School Food and Nutrition Services Department. We also see replacement of the press boxes at Potomac High School and Woodbridge High School to address some structural integrity issues. The maintenance category includes roof replacements at Marsteller Middle and Potomac High School, significant sustainability investments in LED upgrades, outdoor learning environments, and solar photovoltaic arrays at 6 schools. We also see significant investment in replacing playgrounds at schools that are in these playgrounds that are in poor condition. The life cycle replacement of school division equipment and assets will be a topic that we'll discuss further in the presentation. Please note that all of these projects are included in both Scenario A and Scenario B. And I will discuss Scenario A and Scenario B right now. The CIP is presented to you as 2 different scenarios. In the previous slide, we showed projects that are added to both scenarios. But Scenario A includes $128.2 million in additional funding for the 14th High School. This additional funding is required for the project based on the independent review of plans to develop a more accurate cost estimate of $352 million all told. Scenario B contemplates the discontinuation of the 14th High School construction project. This reduces the cost to the CIP by $191 million. Having removed the 14th High School, new projects have been added, which include constructing both East and West robotic centers. The East Robotic Center is proposed for Garfield High School, and the West Robotic Center is proposed for Unity Reed High School. These facilities are planned as school additions to provide additional space for robotics learning. Several energy efficiency and sustainability measures are included in Scenario B. These include adding geothermal to the Bull Run Middle School HVAC replacement project, critical building automation system upgrades at 25 schools spread over the 5-year CIP window, and LED upgrades at 5 additional schools. As shown, Scenario A increases the CIP cost by $128.2 million. Scenario B decreases the CIP cost by $128.264 million. Thus, the overall CIP cost differential between the 2 scenarios amounts to a total of $256 million. Here we see the comparison of Scenario A to Scenario B within CIP project categories. Within the new construction category, Scenario A exceeds Scenario B by over $302 million, accounting for the inclusion of the 14th High School. Scenario B includes nearly $46 million more within the maintenance category, reflecting the investments there in energy efficiency and sustainability as well as HVAC improvements. Please note again the overall cost differential of $256 million between scenario A and scenario B. Here we're highlighting new facilities within the proposed CIP. We're showing several projects which are not receiving additional CIP funds, but which are soon to be completed. Also note at the bottom of this table are two versions of the 14th High School corresponding to scenario A and scenario B. Here we'll look at additions to the proposed CIP. We see an additional $22 million added to the Marsteller Middle School project for geothermal HVAC system. And we see at Pennington Traditional, we see a date change to May 2029 due to the permitting challenges with the city of Manassas. With the Marsteller Middle School addition, the Pennington addition, and the Dale City Elementary addition, previously planned projects have now been rolled into the respective additions to accomplish all the projects at the same time, yielding greater efficiency and potential cost savings. The two robotics centers are shown here, but are only applicable to scenario B. Here we see major renovations that are included within the proposed CIP. Please note that the updated completion date for Vaughn Elementary is now June 2029. Based on external independent review of drawings and plans, additional CIP funding is requested for both Woodbridge Middle School and Brentsville District High School. The CIP also presents the inclusion, as we've discussed, of Hampton Middle School for renovation. This renovation is scheduled for completion in 2032 at a total cost of $85 million. The proposed FY27 CIP includes a standard turf life cycle replacement at Potomac High School, as well as the replacement of turf fields at middle schools over the next several years. There were 7 turf fields that were installed at middle schools, which was originally funded by Prince William County. By cooperative agreement, Prince William County Schools will pay half of the cost to replace these turf carpets. So essentially, we're paying for 3.5 turf fields, and Prince William County will pay for 3.5 turf fields. These fields are used by middle schools during the school day and then are available to the community for use at all other times, as programmed by the county's Parks Department. For your reference, we've provided the turf field projects that we've included within the last 2 CIPs. These cover new practice fields at all high schools in FY26, as well as several turf field construction projects included in FY25. Here we see roof replacements and repairs within the CIP. We continue to monitor and replace roofs on a schedule that considers planned life expectancy as well as annually updated condition assessments. This year we've started a structured formal program to monitor and replace assets that we already own. We focused on 5 key asset categories as shown in the upper right portion of the slide. This program builds on existing asset replacement strategies, but puts in place a more strategic plan to address the full scope of school division assets. There are more asset categories to include, such as custodial equipment at schools and furniture at schools, but these will require further development for inclusion in upcoming CIPs. This first step represents a more analytical approach to monitoring and manage our existing assets to ensure that students and employees have safe and reliable equipment available for their continued use. It will also reduce the administrative burden on school principals, allowing them to more fully focus on their important jobs of leading student instruction. In summary, here we see the net impact to the CIP for significant changes by project type from the FY26-30 CIP. These projects from the last year's CIP, whose funding schedule has progressed out of the CIP in FY27, these progressions of funding for multi-year funded projects lead to a natural decrease in the cost of the new CIP. However, looking at specific categories, we see the impact of older projects progressing out and new projects being added to the CIP. In both scenarios, we see increases to major renovations, interior upgrades, minor renovations, equipment replacements, and roof replacements. In scenario A, we see an increase of $73.3 million for new facilities, a decrease of $25 million in additions, an increase of $446,000 for HVAC projects, and $28.1 million for sustainability projects. In scenario B, with the discontinuation of the 14th high school, we see a reduction of $24.5 million in new facilities, but an increase of $39.4 million in HVAC improvements and an increase of $33 million in sustainability projects. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Yusuf for the last section.
Thank you, Mr. Beavers. This looks at the total CIP cost for both scenario A and scenario B, and it compares it to our previous year CIP. Overall, when you look at scenario A, the CIP increases by $282 million, and in scenario B, the CIP increases by 25.5, which is a smaller increase as compared to the 282 million. And we do have the different categories in terms of our total CIP costs. More importantly, we look at the next slide, which talks about how we fund our CIP. PWCS finance its CIP mainly through bonds, which are reserved for large-scale projects with asset useful lives exceeding 20 years. Projects with near-term and mid-term useful lives and timelines are typically supported by operating cash, and in certain cases, we do dip into our profits and get funding through profits. Again, scenario A will require additional funding of $282 million, and scenario B is much smaller at $25 million. So, in summary, scenario A will require significantly greater resources for major capital projects, while scenario B provides a limited but targeted increase supporting fiscal discipline. Bonds. As I said earlier on, we issue bonds to fund most of our CIP. Scenario A will lead to the issuance of $239 million more in bonds over the next 5 years. For our CIP, this represents a significant expansion of the division's borrowing capacity and potential increase in debt service obligations. On the other hand, scenario B will require $54 million less in bonds than previously estimated in the CIP. The reduction in borrowing would help limit the growth in outstanding debt and ease financial pressures associated with bond repayments. And just between the two scenarios, the additional bonds are at $293 million. If scenario A is chosen, the next 3 bond issuances would total $923 million, which is approximately $307 million each. This would represent the highest level of bond sales in the past 20 years. And it is unprecedented and would push the limits of Prince William County's debt capacity. And we have to be mindful that they do have projects too that they would like to fund, and they use, they have to count both schools and the county. Such significant increases in borrowing could create additional fiscal constraints and heightened importance of careful debt management strategies moving forward. In either case, we have to be very mindful of what debt we issue and how we repay it. Our debt service. Debt service refers to the payments made on outstanding bonds, including both principal and interest. These payments represent a significant financial obligation for the school division and are an essential factor in our long-term fiscal planning. After all, as we issue bonds, we have to pay it back. Under scenario B, we have $80 million in debt service savings as compared to scenario A. Debt service is funded mainly through the county transfer, which is the primary source for these obligations. Any increase in debt service payments will directly reduce the funds available for the operating budget, potentially impacting day-to-day school operations and programs. So $80 million would definitely, an increase over 5 years would be significant to our operating budget. So we reached this decision point for the school board. In light of declining enrollments, rising estimated costs for the 14th high school, we implore and entreat the school board to determine whether to proceed with constructing the new facility in scenario A or to discontinue the project in scenario B. That is really the crux of our CIP this year, and it is a recalibration and reset that we are going through for this current fiscal year, upcoming fiscal year. And finally, we have information of our CIP and budgeting timeline. Obviously, we are here today for the work session. On the 4th, the superintendent will present the FY 2027 proposed budget and CIP to the school board. We have a public meeting on February 9th, 2026. Official public hearing on February 18th, 2026. We do our school board work session for final markup on the FY 27 CIP and budget on March 11th. The school board approves the FY 2027 CIP budget and submits to the Board of County Supervisors on March 18th. The chair of the school board presents to the school board's budget to the BOCS on April 7th, and by April 21st, the Board of County Supervisors approve the FY 2027 school budget. That concludes our presentation. We'll hand it back for any questions.
Shaquille, real quick, on this slide to 46, so I understand scenario A, over the long term, 4 years, 5 years, we borrow 1.1 billion. Scenario B, 815 million. Explain to me, I don't know, understand the green stuff on the fiscal change. Grand total 238 and grand total minus 54. What is that? What am I looking at?
So when you compare scenario A to what we had last year, projected for bond sales last year.
Oh, I see. So this
So
is a
you
change
had-
from what we thought we were going to
we could
spend last year.
Yes.
So as I look at scenario A, 238 is more money than we thought we would spend last year.
Correct.
And scenario B will be 54 million
Less.
less than we thought last year over the course.
Correct.
How's it 54 million? Shouldn't it be more than 54 million less?
No, it's 869. It's the same, and we're doing 815.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So if you look at the difference between scenario A and scenario B vertically, that's
Yeah,
293
that
million.
I can see.
Yeah,
I can see
yeah.
300 million.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
that's the real number. That's the
Yes.
real
Yeah.
savings.
Yes.
But we're taking some of that 300 million and doing some other projects with it.
Correct. We are adding projects to
Yes.
scenario
So
B.
that's why it's not a pure 300.
Yes.
So the second question I have, just, I think for everyone to know, just remind us, when we do bond sales, the bond issuers and the people who buy our bonds expect us to use that money on new projects, or are we allowed to use them on remodeling?
So we typically use it for a combination of major renovations
Okay.
and new projects, because some of our renovations are essentially almost new, if I can speak for that.
So
Vern.
what's a major renovation? Like, what's an example of that? Like, I don't know. Is that new classrooms in a school? Is that considered major
There's
renovation?
capacity enhancements. When a school undergoes a major surgery, if I can use that term.
Yeah.
But I'll ask Vern to add to that.
Well, you're the money guy. But like a robotics center, is that new construction or is that remodeling in a small way?
That's an addition.
That's an addition. So we could use bonded money for that.
Yes, if it is we anticipate the useful life of that particular addition to be more than 20 years.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So 20
that-
years is, because our bonds are sold and paid over a 20-year period.
So that's really the key there.
Yes,
We
sir.
use this thing over 20 years. Is this something capacity building? Is that right, Vern?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. I just wanted to be clear on that. Because I know you've sort of slapped my hand in past years on trying to borrow money for renovating or remodeling smaller stuff, or like a series of small things. Like if I wanted to remodel 20 small things at $5 million each, is that something, you know?
We typically look at operating cash to do those.
Okay. All right. Questions? Ms. Williams?
I don't have a lot of questions. I just want to, the outdoor spaces that we're looking at, should we do that? I would just like to put in a request that we're mindful of the employees who are currently doing that type of work within buildings and utilizing their expertise, because I know we do a group, a lot of opinions are involved, but I know we have some really successful stories right now. So I just wanted to make sure we captured that. Any of the renovations that we're doing on elementaries, do we have a list of current elementary schools that don't have like well, I know we're doing the mobile labs, so music space, or as we renovate, those are the two things that we're also keeping in mind, correct?
Absolutely. We are addressing that, and through some of the renovations where we don't have like a string space, we are adding string spaces, specialty spaces, adding spaces for ESL, and being mindful of that. So absolutely. And to address your question or comment about engaging with folks at schools who are champions of outdoor classrooms, we're definitely engaging with those folks, making sure we hear their voice, how they are currently utilizing those spaces, and what enhancements we can make to those spaces. So we're definitely gonna capitalize on those champions and build them into the process.
Thank you, I really appreciate that. And then the option for us to have robotic spaces, depending on which way it goes. Love that. And those robotic spaces would be used like for tournaments, so they'd be tall enough for drones and all of our programming.
Yeah, in the 14th high school design, that's how it was designed
Okay.
to also be leveraged for the school space during the day, but also have other schools utilize that during the day and even after school hours. So we would anticipate that in scenario B, where we're proposing the 2 additional robotic centers, making sure that they're available for competitions, designed first to be able to accommodate that, but also making those available for other schools to have that advantage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then along the same lines, as we have space available in our buildings, one of the things that I do know, because robotics is my life now, we don't have spaces in our buildings. So oftentimes teams have to like pack up everything and they're sharing a space with something else. So as we have the ability to have freer space, I'm just asking facilities to maybe work with schools to have mindful spaces for that, especially as the program continues to grow, because I'm adding more programming into robotics. So that's the thing that I hear the most. Practice space is not available, or it's being taken for other programs, which is fine, but it looks as if we'll have space moving down. So just asking me mindful and keep that in
Good
mind.
feedback.
Yep. I don't know if that could be added to some sort of index, but I know you guys have wonderful ones. And then my last one is, regardless of the scenario, can we please make sure, like, will we have any more LED lights to replace? I had to put a joke in there about LEDs, because either scenario has them, but I notice if we don't do the high school, there's additional schools. If we do, then there's a set amount. Will that be the end of it?
Justin, I think that closes us out. It's pretty darn close, because I think in scenario B, we pick up 6 additional sites. But Justin, you want to comment on that?
Yes, I've made it my personal mission to close out LED upgrades in the next 2
Okay.
years. I'll look into it and let you know if there are any lingerers, and we'll try to add them.
Thanks. What are we without our humor? But the robotic space is really important as we can, because we're adding like IQ and a few other programs. So thank you, and thank you, Justin.
Ms. Wall?
Thank you. Thank you very much. This presentation is awesome. Lots and lots of information. Not as fun of a CIP, hearing the high costs and the falling enrollment, you know. But I have a couple of questions through page 38 and 39. I believe I did ask this before, but maybe it would be helpful for the benefit of anyone listening. The costs for renovations have dramatically increased from past years, you know, like 2020, 2021, 2022. And so I think it would be helpful maybe to just kind of put that out there, why it's costing, I mean, you know, 79 Fredlin, 74 million Vaughan, 85 million Hampton, just to kind of put that in context in case individuals are going to wonder, like, why are we, this is such a big cost for renovation. It used to be that you could build a middle school for this amount. So that's my first question that I think people might want to hear about and have eliminated. And then my other question was on page 39, I'll just put them both out here. The fiscal years 26 CIP high schools, new practice turf fields. I'm reading that all of the high schools are going to get a practice turf field. We're going to bring that up to like an equitable distribution of turf fields for practice fields.
I thought you might ask that, and that was
This is
in
a
the,
topic that
so I
I
pulled
have-
up last year's CIP so I could address that quickly.
Okay, great.
We do. We have 26. We add 2 turf fields into the mix or refurbish 27. So over the next 4 years to 2029, we're refurbishing 8 high school turf fields, and those were prioritized because they're pretty close to their life cycle, and also that was that $24 million item that we put in there in
Last year.
FY26 that was planned in that year's CIP. So yes, we
Yeah.
have 8 of those practice fields being addressed.
Great. And I know last year I think we detailed which ones they were.
Yes.
It's not in this. Obviously, I'm interested in the one high school in my district,
Which year would you?
which is Battlefield. I think
2029.
it was. Oh, I thought it was
Yeah.
sooner.
It's 29. That was in last year's CIP.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was like 2027.
I'll double check, but I'm showing 29, but I'll double check
Okay.
for you.
Okay. Yeah, my recollection is that there was a facility assessment done and like age of when it was, I can't remember. Anyway,
Say
we'll
that
talk.
one more time.
I in the CIP, it was like far out. And then it was, I asked that it be evaluated, and then it was reevaluated and moved up.
I could, in full
That-
disclosure, maybe looking at an older version
Yeah,
of
that's
that, because
correct.
we did adjust.
Ms.
Yeah.
Wall is correct.
Yeah.
When we went back and did the evaluation, Battlefield was one of the oldest.
Yeah.
And so that's how Battlefield got moved. So you are correct, in fact, that we addressed that
Yeah,
last year.
that's what I thought.
And I can confirm.
Let's just make sure that
But
everybody
it's,
who's
it's
doing.
sooner than 29, I thought.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Okay, let's confirm that when you get a
Okay.
chance.
Will do.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm advocating for my district. Most of this is happening in different parts of the district, which is fine. But there are just a few little things here and there, some LED lights and a few things that are Gainesville district. But that's a big one that the community would really value. Okay, and then I guess I didn't have any other questions, but I do appreciate the candor on the costs and the bonds and everything else. And I really do take that seriously, and I think we need to really think long and hard about the financial implications of the 2 scenarios. So I do appreciate all the work in laying it out for us and helping us understand what's at stake from a financial standpoint, from a reputational standpoint, fiscal reputation standpoint, and just, wise use of resources. So I appreciate the team on all of this. Thank you very much.
So just to remind the board, and then we'll go to Lisa. Many of you have been briefed on this presentation prior to this meeting. This is, again, another time to take a look at it. At next week's school board meeting on board matters, on for information and further discussion is scenario A and scenario B. And then, and certainly if you can think of questions, concerns you might have, more than what you've already had, you can share them with the administration and staff. We'll hear from them next week at the school board meeting, so it'll be fully public again on this discussion, and then coming back to the first meeting in February, the board is expected, if they have not done it yet, which there's no hurry to do it tonight or to do it next week, but that first meeting in February, we have to make a decision on scenario A or scenario B to move forward with the final budgeting process. So you have some time to take a look at it, certainly hear from your constituents on that, and certainly feel free to ask your questions. Ms. Zargarpur.
Oh, sorry, really quick.
Or yeah, Ms.
The
Wall.
question I asked, do you want to answer that now about the middle school renovations, or do you want to push it off?
Yeah, we can come back to
You can
that.
come back
Yeah.
to it? Okay, thanks.
Ms. Zargarpur.
All right, thank you. not in these, any renovations, but something that does come up from time to time, and I'm wondering how we handle it, is there are times when I've visited some of my elementary schools, and they will have some special needs kids, a runner perhaps, very young children, and they would like fences around playgrounds. How do principals advocate for that? And what's the process for that look like? Because that's obviously not going to be a $1 million project, but it's a safety concern, and yeah, so that's my question.
Yeah, we have a policy and a regulation in place for principals that if they're seeking a modification to their site, they would submit a work order. A team from facilities would go out and investigate the site, bring in permitting, engage with the county on permitting, and then we would circle back with the school of any costs that it may be incurred at the school level or through facilities. So just to answer the question on fencing around playgrounds, we have entertained that with county code. It is problematic for egress to fence in a playground because they do need to be able to have an exit from the playground should an emergency occur, and to have it fenced in with 4 sides with a single point of entry is problematic, and code would not permit us to do that.
I did not think about that, thank you. Then my last question about playgrounds. I remember when we were first on the board, Adele Jackson wanted to make sure that we had accessible playgrounds. And I know we put something into, so as we are looking at any renovations, we're still keeping with that plan, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
As we renovate elementary schools, we are renovating the playground to include universal design.
Thank you. I've also seen students who will have temporary walkers or something with wheels and in different spaces, and they often cannot access anything where there is mulch. So are we thinking about, because that can happen at any time. People can have an accident or a temporary need. It may not be permanent, but I have seen kids sort of limited to blacktops before. So that's a concern about the mulch too.
We do use a product on our playgrounds. It's not mulch. It's engineered product called Fibar, and it does meet ADA requirements for students with mobility issues.
Thank you.
Mr. Will.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't really have a lot to add to this. I do appreciate the
Excellent,
presentation
thanks.
and the breakdown.
No, go ahead.
I do have ask. I'm more specific this year. I'm not just going to be broadly about give me something for Dumfries. Can you guys give me a quote, not for me personally, like for me to buy, but on a climate-controlled storage facility and a new refrigerator for Dumfries Elementary?
Sure, we can look into that for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate that. And then talking about program capacity, I do like hearing that schools with the expansion of the pre-K will also be looking to take some of the classrooms out of the on-site programs. You know, it is a, misperception from some I've heard come speak. Although, Patty has 2 pre-K within the building, that has no ability to alleviate a 200 student overcapacity. But in the future, though, those 2 rooms being across the street could possibly be prime opportunities just to have some additional space. But that's all I have to say. So thank you all so much tonight.
Mr.
I just want to say thank you, Scott. I think you did a great job. Not that everybody else didn't, but Scott did a great job. I appreciate the thought going into Noakesville Elementary School and utilizing that for different purposes, possibly middle school adjacent, because it's, everything's growing, everything's moving around in the Brentsville district. So I appreciate the thought going into the future planning. And, I love hearing the word redistricting because I think it solves all of our problems. So thank you guys for that, and I appreciate this great presentation again.
Dr. Lateef, can I clarify one thing? Ms. Wall, I apologize. I was looking at an earlier version of the CIP, and Vince is sitting behind me, our supervisor of construction. He has confirmed for me that fall of 2026 will be the battlefield turf practice field. So
Thank
my
you.
apologies.
That
Yeah.
fits better with my memory.
Yeah.
It also
I'd
fits better with what
forgotten
I've
that.
told my community.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
You're good.
is important.
So my apologies.
Okay, thanks. I
And
appreciate
that is this fall, 26, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Mr. Jesse.
Well, I feel like the person that's going to get beat up on this one. We delayed the 14th high school, and sort of ironic that we're at where we are now. But just a couple questions. We paid $16 million for the land. What are we going to do with the land?
So we still, that's something we have to decide, and there's a process of how we sell and obtain proceeds from the sale of our property, specifically land. I'm gonna punt it to Mr. Anderson if he wants to provide some additional information.
Sure. I mean, to me, it's several steps down the road because you got it, once the board makes a decision, it depends on whether we have the land or not have the land. So if we've got the land, and Mr. Yusuf is correct, that were we to decide to sell it, we have to ask the county for permission to keep those proceeds from the sale. And there may be but obviously it could be repurposed for other projects if there were projects that we thought should be placed there, right? So I don't think discussions have been made about what to do with it because we don't know whether it's even going to be available, depending on what the board's guidance is.
The other question I have is somewhat related to the Board of Supervisors. I think it's the Summit Road revamping that they're doing now. And it is, I don't know how much that costs, but it's probably a big cost. So I don't know if they're going to feel somewhat, we're saving a lot of money, as you say, but they have also expended a lot of money because that road is probably in a position now that they can't stop. They're going to have to finish it. So.
Mr. Jesse, we are already participating in those road improvements from a financial standpoint. The school division has a number of requirements for the entry into the site. So we've come to agreement with the county in terms of those road improvements, and we're paying for those. So it's on a limited basis, not a significantly large number, but we are participating in that project.
So, if you listen to the last school board meeting, I sort of ended the meeting with my concerns as, as chairman of things that I worry about on a daily basis. And things that I continue to worry about are, what I call headwinds and challenges that we're going to face moving forward as a school division. Tonight, and we did live stream this meeting because I felt and the board felt it's extremely important for the public to be very aware, keenly aware of the challenges the school divisions face. And pages 12 and 13 scream, our enrollment drop over the next 5 to 6, 7 years. And it is a significant drop. It is close to, I think, what was it, like about 5,000 kids? What is it, Vern? So almost 6,000.
Almost 6,000 total, yeah.
Yeah, so about 6,000 kids. You're looking at about 7 to 8%, maybe 8% of the entire school division. When you lose kids, that means we close classrooms. When we close classrooms, we have undercapacity, as pointed out in the program capacity and discussions earlier. When you have less, you're underutilizing capacity, you have less classrooms, you need less employees. And I think it's very important, as the largest employer in the county and one of the largest in the state, that we be absolutely transparent with everyone, that as we are losing students, we will have to shrink our workforce if this comes to fruition, which, based on the projections and the trends so far, looks like that's happening. We're making a tough decision on the redistricting coming up in the next few weeks on closing an elementary school, which has never been done in the county in recent times. And it is important for the public to be well aware of where we are and the challenges the school board, the administration, and our community faces as we look at these things. when the school division, I think the discussions to build the 14th high school even begun prior to 2018 when I got on the board. And it was something that at the time, based on the projections we saw then, we needed. We were bursting at the seams at many of our high schools. If you look at pages 12 and 13 of this, so that's number one. I think it's important for the public to realize we have significant challenges of enrollment. Number two, you know, whether we build the new high school with scenario A or we don't in scenario B, we will be faced with significant high school redistricting. The thing that people in this county least will like to see, and is among the least popular things a school board has to do, and that's redistricting. And under every scenario, whether we build it, whether we don't build it, whether we delay it, redistricting must happen. And if you take a look at the capacities of our high schools, we have to make some changes. And so there will be some tough decisions coming up in the next few years by this school board and the next school board on what we do with that, because we have to do that, and the data here screams redistricting, because if we can redistrict, we can really do a lot of great things as far as balancing capacity, balancing our employees' needs, and potentially, you know, addressing our workforce needs, or, you know, needs, or maybe not having to reduce the workforce as much. And so those are significant things that matter. These all cost real dollars, they're taxpayer dollars, and we as board members are, you know, charged with making sure the tax-paying dollars are spent in a responsible way. And I think as we look at scenario A and B, each board member has to make that, you know, decision of where we look to go. This new high school, at the cost we're estimating down here, even at the lowest cost, you're looking at close to $230,000 per seat in the high school. I don't know, I had asked in my briefing, what is the average per seat cost for a high school in the United States? Do we know that answer?
What I did, Dr. Lateef, is we looked locally in Northern Virginia, and we do have a benchmark that in Loudoun County. And roughly, we looked at all-in construction cost, and for their high school, they were looking at about $780 a square foot, all in, permitting everything. And with our 14th high school, and they're building their 14th, so our 14th came in at about $1,063 a square foot, so almost $400 north of what they were paying for in Loudoun.
But did you do a calculation on per seat cost?
We did not do the per seat. We did
Okay,
by
can we
square
do that
foot.
next
Sure,
time? Because that's,
sure.
I asked for that, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So just based on our numbers, if you compare, now Colgan was built many years ago, based on their cost in my sort of rough calculations, that was around $25,000 per seat. Or no, wait, what did I do here? Hold on one sec, I gotta get this right so I don't screw this up. It was significantly cheaper. It's about 10 times the cost now. Obviously, it was $57,000 per seat. At Colgan, this would be theoretically $220,000, $210,000. I don't know what Gainesville would be, but it's just a number of, you know, what this would cost. But more importantly than the cost, because I've had no problems, as everyone knows, spending money. As the school board chair, I have zero issues with that for needs that benefit our students. But as we look at the construction cost, relative to our needs, it does not make a lot of sense. And then when we talk about redistricting, and I appreciate Ms. Tredenik's enthusiasm for it, I would also caution, you know, with that enthusiasm comes the idea that we need to entertain all options. And, you know, I'm going to say all the unpopular things because that's my job. And even based on not building the new high school, the vacant seats at the high school level remain at a level that's one high school. It's about 1,700 students. We could shut down a high school and have same capacity. So we could theoretically not build this high school and shut down a high school, save a lot of money. What I also didn't hear tonight, which I'd like to hear, Vern, at the next meeting, is what you've told us is the cost of building a high school, and with the savings of building a high school, Mr. Yusuf, what is the cost of operating a high school on a yearly basis? Because that's also the savings we'll have if we don't build this high school, is the cost of operating a building, heating it, cooling it, LED lighting it, you know, all of that drama that goes along with it. that is savings as well, because what you talked about savings today is just construction savings. It's not the operation savings of an actual high school. So I think that's really important for everyone to understand as well as they make this decision. But when it comes to redistricting, so I said something radical about possibly closing a high school, which I don't think we do, but you never know. I look at things like the Nokesville School K through 8. Does it make sense to have a K through 8 school there? Should that be made a full middle school or a full elementary school, and do we do something else out there? I am very open to, changes that address the needs of our students and make sure that, we have capacity and proper utilization across the board, and that we offer the best facilities and options for our students. So there is nothing that's off the table for me. And we have really serious things that we have to deal with. There's an economy that's not going to be as good as it has been the last 10 years. We don't know what our funding is going to look like moving forward. We don't know if we can continue spending the way we've been spending on, a variety of different things. And so I think we have to be very considerate of these things as we make these big decisions. And I appreciate the new strategic plan, which talks about, one of the ways to utilize, and you mentioned it here in the presentation, universal pre-K. We could add 5,000 kids to the division by doing universal pre-K, filling up seats that we need, that we have capacity for, and potentially keeping teachers, folks employed that we might otherwise not need if we continue to see this thing. So these are sort of, and I apologize, this board weighs what to do. These are the serious things we have to consider as we make a decision moving forward on not just scenario A, scenario B, but on this year's budget and how this board wants to move forward and with what strategic plans we want to do with the strategic plan, what ideas we want to fund. So with that, Mr. Jesse.
I appreciate all your comments. A couple things to keep in mind also. The cost of doing things has drastically increased lately, and it's probably going to continue to increase for a while. So that's part of the factors that we look at. But I do have a concern with pre-K, universal pre-K. Where in the heck are we going to put all these people? Because in our elementary schools and so forth right now, it is very difficult because my understanding, every pre-K room has to have a restroom. So that's very difficult. And I don't, we're talking about money going out the window. I believe in universal pre-K. I'm just not sure where in the heck we're going to put all these kids when we do that. So that's a concern I have going forward here. Thank you.
We will come to the board with a full proposal on universal pre-K. We are looking at everything from our market share of school-age children that will qualify for pre-K, as well as building capacity. As you see, we have plenty of capacity. If we redistrict, we can solve some of the concerns that you're talking about. But we will, I don't want to prematurely put anything out there because we just launched the strategic plan. It hasn't even been voted on yet, so we don't even know where the board will end up on universal pre-K until the vote is approved for the strategic plan. So I think it's premature to talk about any plans for anything that the board has not yet approved. But if it is approved, we will have a full comprehensive proposal that will be driven by research and studying what has occurred throughout the country on universal pre-K and put something forward that is responsible, that takes into consideration all of the factors.
I would just think that if we're going to vote on a pre-K, we need the information before we vote.
I'll leave that to the board to decide what you would like to do, but it is not possible to, yes, we can do universal pre-K. There'll be many different scenarios on how we deliver on that. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all, but looking at the data that you saw today, we certainly have capacity within our school system to take in more students, and it would support and in some ways stop some of the hemorrhaging of, just like Matt said before, students do come into the district. He gave the scenario of the faucet being on, but the drain is still open. We are not capturing students that we could capture that do not come to our school system because they start somewhere else in pre-K. So this is an opportunity, just like we have mitigation strategies for, underutilization, redistricting is one of them. Having universal pre-K is another opportunity for us to bring in additional students into our school system. So I think it's a viable option that the board should definitely consider.
Ms. Wall.
Along this same train of thought, I was looking at the data from the VDOE on homeschool students and religious exemption students, and that's also on the rise in Virginia. And it has been on the rise in Prince William as well. So those are also students that maybe they've opted out, but if we could do something different or better, or somehow we could maybe try to capture some of those students and bring them back in if we listen to why they left and how we can bring them back in. I think it was something like 3,000 students or something like that potentially in Prince William. I can't remember exactly. It was under 3,000, but I think it was around 2,500 or 2,800 or something like that. Students who have opted to homeschool in Prince William County.
We don't know the exact number, but we'll have it prepared for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Blake.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation as well. I do have one question, or just point out, like, so this 350 million, right? It's for only a 1,400 seat school, not even a full size high school.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's my only question. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is, we have some tough choices. I think I think Mr. Jesse's correct, right? Costs will continue to go up. If you're gonna build this high school, this will be the time to build it. I wouldn't, but I think you have to take a look at, do we need the high school? I'm in the position of, as you heard, considering, do we keep all our high schools? And are there schools that we can sort of reduce in size and save money? And all with the eye to improve student performance. And so in the end, whatever decisions we make, I have made the decisions based on what I believe will improve student performance across this division. Universal pre-K is well known to be something that drives student performance incredibly, and it's the cheapest investment one can make to improve student performance in the long term. It's long overdue, and I think Prince William County, being the only school division in the Commonwealth to do it, independent of whatever Richmond or Washington, D.C. decides to do or not decides to do, because we can't wait for them, offering high-quality pre-K programs. And I think Dr. McDade's had the experience of building high-quality pre-K all-day programs, not all day, full-time, what do we call full-day programs in the city of Chicago. We know they have significant benefits, and like I said earlier, I have no problem spending $1 if someone can prove to me that dollar goes to improving student performance. And if that does it, I have no qualms to borrow it, to use it, to spend it, operating cash on that to make that happen. So I think that's important. But we have a lot more discussions on this. I encourage the board to hear from their constituents. And I appreciate everyone's time tonight. And with that, I think I will adjourn this meeting. Amen. Thank you.